Hi everyone, Allie here from The Family Meeple, and today I am back with the 5th video in my Top 100 Countdown of 2023. If you haven't checked out the earlier videos, I will link to the introduction in the description below. It's a great place to start and find out a little bit more about how I created the list for 2023 and about my list that I created in 2021, which I will be comparing to if any of the games overlap. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be covering the last part of the top half of the list, which is numbers 60 through 51. Starting us out today, coming in at number 60 is Cascadia. Cascadia is a 2021 game designed by Randy Flynn and published by Flat Out Games and AEG. The artwork is from Beth Sobel. Cascadia is new to the list in 2023 as it was released in late 2021, so it wasn't out when I originally published my first list. Cascadia is a tile placement and drafting game for 1 to 4 players. It's based around the Cascades region of the Pacific Northwest, which is the number one reason that I was interested in the game to begin with, because that's where I am originally from and where I grew up. In Cascadia, you're going to be taking turns drafting a tile and token combination from the center and adding it to your individual player area. Each player will start with a different 3x3 hexagon tile that goes in their center, and you'll be building off of that. Unlike some of the other tile placement games that I've mentioned earlier on the list, there are no specific tile placement rules outside of you must connect one side completely to a side on another tile you can't connect, like a corner. But there's no rules as far as the terrain types needing to match, although you will want them to. So in Cascadia, you're going to play over a number of rounds, which all play out the same way. You're going to draft a tile and a token, and you'll add it to your area. You will play until the tiles and tokens have run out and they cannot be refilled. And at the end of the game, when all of the tiles and tokens have been played, you are going to score your individual Cascadia region that you've created in front of you, and whoever has the highest score will win. You'll be scoring points by meeting the specific requirements of each of the 5 animal species that you will be adding as tokens into your Cascadia region. And each of them score a little bit differently. So for example, the bears may want to be in pairs away from other bears. The hawks may want to have line of sight. The elk may want to be in a straight line connected to each other. And the foxes might want to be in pairs with other animal species as pairs around them. There's also salmon who typically want to be in a salmon run, where they are only adjacent to at most 2 other salmon connected by one side of the tile. You'll score for all of your animal species based on the specific cards that were used for that game. There are several different objective cards for each of the animals that you can mix the game up with. And then you'll also score for your largest connected region of each of the different terrain types. The player who has created the largest region of each of the terrain types will also get a bonus. You can score points for having leftover pinecone tokens at the end, and then the player with the most points wins. It's an extremely simple game that works very well with new players, but it's also very relaxing and works great just as a solo game or as a game for more experienced gamers as well. Cascadia is one that I've really been enjoying, and it's one that tends to come out quite frequently with my mom's gaming group because the artwork is absolutely beautiful and the nature theme seems to be very appealing to my friends and people who are newer into the hobby. So that is my number 60, Cascadia. Number 59 is another new game to the list. This is Artifacts Inc. Artifacts Inc. was published by Red Raven Games. It was designed and illustrated by Ryan Lockett. Artifacts Inc. was released in 2014, but it's not a game that I picked up until later. It is a dice worker placement and manipulation game where you are also building a tableau of cards in front of you. So in Artifacts Inc., each player is going to start out with 4 cards that begin their tableau. They will also start out with a number of dice, which they will roll at the beginning of their turn. You'll use these dice to take actions either on the cards that are in your individual tableau or out in the center by going on dives or selling artifacts to the museums or doing things like guide work to earn a little bit of extra income. Over the course of the game, you will be selling artifacts that you have discovered to the different museums and using that money to purchase additional cards to build out into your tableau, which will allow you to discover additional types of artifacts or somehow help you in the game by providing you with additional dice, helping you to manipulate dice, or kind of change the rules for yourself. They will also include some cards where you can earn additional points based on the arrangement of your tableau at the end of the game. The game plays very quickly. It plays until a player has reached 20 points on the score track. At that point, everyone will be able to finish out the round, and then the player with the most points wins. At the very end, you will score bonus points for majorities in each of the museums, and then that will be the end. Artifacts Inc. does include a solo mode that was designed by Ryan Lockett. It's available either on his website or BGG. It is a nice solo mode. I am actually currently playing this one for my first 10x5 solo challenge of 2023. And you can hear more thoughts specifically on the solo mode when my challenge video comes out later this year. But for now, that is number 59, Artifacts Inc. Number 58 is also new to the list this year. This is Otis. Otis was published by Pearl Games. It's designed by Claude Luciani, and artwork is from Paul Meffayan. It was published in 2017. Otis is a game that I picked up again because it was sort of underrated and less well known, but the mechanics of it looked really intriguing to me. Otis is an underwater themed game where players are going to be collecting different colored cubes that represent, I believe, different types of resources or finds from the depths of the ocean in their individual player boards. So you will have an individual player board with different divers that will allow you to take different actions, and they'll each be at a different level on the players' boards, even though everyone starts with the same set of divers. On your turn, you're going to use a token to select one of the diver levels to use that action. It will also dictate a special bonus action that's on the main board in the center of the table. And you'll take that action first and then take the main action at the level that your diver's at. Once you've taken that action, the chit that you used to represent the action moves to the bottom of your board and can't be used again until you refresh. The diver that you used actually gets moved to the top of the column to the surface because they've run out of air and they have to resurface. It pushes all of the rest of the divers down one level, and then you'll continue play like that. There are ways in the game to mitigate not having to move your divers down when you've used them, to be able to give them extra air to stay down longer, to move divers around up or down so that they're on the right level where you want them. And there's also ways to more quickly get your chits or your tokens back so that you can use the same level more frequently. Mostly what you're doing in this game is trying to collect cubes at a specific level in order to turn them in to achieve objective points. So it's a bit of a set collection or like an objective completion game. The game will play out until a player reaches a certain number of points, I believe. I have actually only played this game solo so far, but it's one that I definitely enjoyed. This was another one that I featured on one of my solo challenges. So if you want more information about how the solo specifically works, you can check out that video as well. I will link it below if I remember. So that is Otis. It's definitely a different game in my collection. It's one that I would like to have some other people try with me because it's not overly complex, but it definitely gives you a lot of things to think about. The artwork is beautiful and the theme is unique. So that is my number 58, Otis. Number 57 is the first of several roll or flip and write games that will appear on this segment of the list. This one is Welcome to the Moon. Welcome to the Moon was published in 2021. It is new to the list. It was designed by Alexis Allard and Benoit Turpin with artwork from Anne Heidziak. It was published by Blue Cocker Games. Welcome to the Moon is a flip and write game that is the third in the series that was started by Welcome to. In Welcome to the Moon, you are going to be playing on dry erase boards, and there are 8 different boards included in the game box for you to play. They also included a campaign mode that you can play through that walks you through each of the different boards and tells a story as you go along, allowing you to make choices, which will dictate things like which objective cards you'll play with and what the win conditions are in order to earn stars for the campaign. The game can be played multiplayer or solo. I have primarily played it solo, although I have also played it multiplayer with my mom. In Welcome to the Moon, players are going to be, like I said, working on one of the 8 boards. But outside of that, you will have the same sort of card flipping and action mechanic as you may be familiar with if you have played Welcome to. So on each turn, you will have 3 cards and you will flip over the top card of each column, which will create a pair of cards that is a number and a action or a special ability. And then you will use that number to write it somewhere on your player board, and then you will optionally use the special action. A lot of it will depend in Welcome to the Moon on where you wrote the number. And in a lot of the scenarios, where you can actually write the number is dictated by the special action card that was flipped with it. So it's a variation on a theme of the original Welcome to, and it's one that I have very much enjoyed. I liked the campaign. I have started playing the solo campaign through a second time, which has also started introducing some of the campaign sort of legacy components into the game as well, which switches up the game just slightly so far. But that is my number 57, Welcome to the Moon. Number 56 is the second of the Century games that I alluded to being on the list earlier when I talked about Century: A New World. This one is Century Spice Road. Century Spice Road was originally published in 2017. It's designed by Emerson Matsuuchi and published by Plan B Games. The artwork is from David Richards and Fernanda Suarez. This one was on my list in 2021. It originally came in at number 5 in 2021, so it has dropped 51 places. Part of that is, again, that there are so many new games on my list from my 2021 list that a lot of the games that I really do enjoy have dropped on the list just to make room for others to appear. Century Spice Road is the first game in the Century series, and it is probably one of the easiest of them to pick up and has been really popular as a game to introduce to my family and my friends. So in Century Spice Road, you are essentially trying to build up an engine of cards in your hand where you can convert spice cubes, certain types of spices, into other types of spices in order to fulfill contracts that are at the top of the display. So players on their turn will do one of a couple of things. They can either play a card from their hand and take the action that's indicated on the card. Usually it will be either gaining spice or converting a certain number of spice cubes into a different number of spice cubes. Or you can take a card from the display on the bottom row. The first card that you have available on the left-hand side is free. You can simply just take it and add it to your hand. Or you can drop a spice cube, any of your choice, onto any of the cards starting from the left, moving right, to bypass those and take a card that's further up. If there's spice on the card that you take from this row, you will gain that spice and add it to your caravan card. And you are limited to, I believe it's 10 spice cubes on your caravan card at any time. So if you gain spice cubes that you either can't fit, you can either not collect them and discard them back, or you can exchange spice cubes that are in your caravan for other ones. The other thing that you can do is to claim one of the contract cards at the top by turning in the matching spice cubes and claiming the card. The first two columns or rows will also give you potentially a gold or silver coin if you complete them first. This is only true until those coins run out. Any cards that are taken from either of the rows on your turn, then you will slide everything down and refill from the right-hand side. So as people don't take cards from the bottom row, they actually can become more and more lucrative because there's spice on them. But at the same time, if you're taking cards from the left, the cards on the right are going to be sliding down and they will get essentially cheaper and cheaper. If you don't want to or can't take any of those actions on your turn, then you can take a rest action, which allows you to pull all of the cards that you've used back into your hand for use again. It is not required that you use all of the cards in your hand before you rest. You can decide when you want to rest. But essentially what you're trying to do is build up a good combination of cards that give you an engine where you can convert cubes quickly and easily to meet the objective cards. It plays over a number of rounds until a player has completed a set number of the objective cards. And then I believe everyone still gets the same number of turns and then the game ends. Each of the objective cards is worth a certain number of points. They'll add up all of the cards that you've collected along with the points for any of the silver or gold coins that you've collected. You will also earn points for any leftover spice that is not the bottom level yellow spice. Anything above that you will earn points for. And the player with the most points wins. Spice Road is, like I said, a great game that I have used to introduce new people into the hobby. It's one that my mom has enjoyed, and one of my good friends who plays games with me regularly, it's one of her favorites as well, so we play it a lot for that. If you haven't played it, it is available on Board Game Arena also in both the Spice Road version as well as the Gollum edition, which a lot of people prefer, but I really like the Spice Road version of the game, so that's the one that I have. There are also several solo modes that you can find for the game on BGG. There's one that I've tried which seems to be not too bad. It's not one that I've been pulling out a lot for solo. It's typically one that I will play multiplayer. So that is my number 56, Century Spice Road. Number 55 is also new to the list. This is Oceanos. Oceanos is a 2016 game designed by Antoine Bauza and published by Yellow Games. The artwork is from Jeremy Fleury. And like I said, this is a game that is new to the list because I did not own it in 2021. This game is a drafting and set collection game that works really well for families and beginners alike, as well as hobby gamers. In Oceanos, you are going to be building out a tableau of cards in front of you in 3 layers. So there are 3 rounds in the game, and each round you will be adding cards into your own personal ocean that you are exploring. Each player will start the game with a submarine that is built from puzzle pieces, and all of the puzzle pieces are going to start out at level 1. One of the fun things in the game is as you draft cards and you build out your tableau, you will be able to arrange them so that you can actually upgrade bits and pieces of your submarine. So for example, the main section of the submarine is your aquarium, where you're going to be collecting different sea creatures as you explore the depths of the ocean. It starts out allowing you to collect 3 sea creatures, I believe. And if you upgrade it, then you can collect 5 sea creatures on each of the rounds moving forward. You're drafting these cards in order to collect symbols on them that allow you to collect creatures into your submarine, upgrade your submarine, as well as collect treasure chests that you'll be able to send your divers to, hopefully. Those can be a little bit challenging. You're also wanting to arrange your cards in your tableau to connect coral on the cards, and you'll score for the largest connected section of coral at the end of the game. So that's something to think about. But also on some of the cards, you will find Kraken eye symbols. And at the end of each round, you'll compare the number of eye symbols that you have on yours with your neighbors. And whoever has the most has to draw the Kraken tile, which is always negative points. It varies how many points it's going to be worth in each of the games, as there's several different Kraken tokens for each of the turns. But as you go down in the last round, it is likely going to be more negative points than the one that's collected in the first round, which could actually, I believe, be 0. So at the end of each round, when you've drafted all of your cards and played them out into your tableau, depending on the restrictions from your personal submarine, you will then add up points for all of the sea creatures, unique sea creatures that you've collected, and for things like upgrading your submarine. And then you will start the second round and you will build underneath the first row that you built. And then the third round, you'll build underneath again. And the cards themselves, the artwork is gradiated so that it looks darker as you go down into the depths. You will also be able to, like I mentioned, drop divers. If you drop a diver on, for example, the second level of your tableau, at the end of the game, it will collect any treasure from that card, and then it will move up and collect anything from the card above it, but it won't collect anything from the bottom card. So ideally, you want to arrange any cards with treasure chests in a column and then be able to drop a diver on that third row, and hopefully you can draft one to drop it there. So there's a little bit of push your luck in the game in several elements. But that's a high-level overview of Oceanos. This is one that we have really enjoyed. It's one that I've played primarily with Rory. It works well at just 2, and kids and adults both get a kick out of upgrading their submarines and playing with those puzzle pieces. So that is my number 55, Oceanos. Number 54 is Odin's Ravens, specifically the second edition. Odin's Ravens second edition was published in 2016 by Osprey Games. The designer is Thorsten Gimler, with artwork from Johan Egerkrans, Harold Liskey, and Marcin Miner. This is a game that actually did appear on my list in 2021. In 2021, it came in at number 30, so it has dropped 24 places, which actually is not too bad. Odin's Ravens is a 2-player only racing game. And in Odin's Ravens, you are going to set out a long line of landscape cards at the beginning of the game, and they will have typically 2 different types of landscape on either side of the card. And what this does is it creates a long track for Odin's Ravens to travel down and back. Each person will have their own raven, either the brown or the white raven, and on your turn, you will draw 5 cards into your hand, and it's your choice of how you draw these cards. You can draw landscape cards, or you can draw Loki cards, which allow you to do some special abilities throughout the game. Once you've drawn your cards, then you will play them out on your turn. The landscape cards are very simple. You will play matching landscape cards to move your raven up the trail or down the other side, depending on where you're at, to those matching spaces. If there are, for example, 2 of the wheat fields that are adjacent in the landscape cards in the middle, and you play one of those wheat fields, you can actually move to the end of that entire section of wheat fields. So it allows you to move a bit faster. One of the things that the Loki cards can do is allow you to manipulate the trail of landscape cards in the center. Some of the things that they can do is allow you to shift the landscape card halfway out one side or the other, to flip it entirely around, or to remove them entirely, I believe, or replace them with other cards. And you will do this in order to manipulate the trail so that theoretically your path is shorter and your opponent's path is longer. The trick with the Loki cards is you only have a certain number for the entire game. Once they're played, they will be discarded from the game entirely. Whereas the landscape cards, if you run out, you will reshuffle and continue to draw your landscape cards. It plays very quickly because you are just racing down to the end and back along the other side. The first person to get to the end is the winner. This is a very simple game. It works well for children. It works well for new gamers. It comes in a small box and the artwork is absolutely gorgeous. It's one that I don't see ever leaving our collection. It's definitely a game that I can see us playing just over and over again. It's one of Rory's favorites and she tends to request it fairly regularly. So that is my number 54, Odin's Ravens. Number 53 is the second flip and write game that is appearing on this section of the list. It is Trails of Tucana. Trails of Tucana is also new to the list as I did not own it in 2021. It is a 2019 game from Aporta Games. It is designed by Eilif Svensson and Christian Amundsen Ostby, and the artwork is from Germain Bonnet, I believe is how you pronounce that. So like I said, this is a new game to the list because I didn't own it in 2021. And I mainly picked this up because I am a huge fan of Aporta Games and of flip and writes. So in Trails of Tucana, you are going to be drawing connections on hexagonal tiles on just a piece of paper map in front of you. I've laminated my copy so I can use it over and over again, but essentially it comes with a big thick pad of these sheets that you're going to be writing on. Each sheet is double-sided and there's a small island on one side for a quick game and a larger island on the back side for a slightly longer game. It really just switches it up from 2 rounds to 3 rounds in the game. Nothing else in the rules changes. So what you're going to be doing is on each turn, you will flip over 2 cards from the deck and each player will be able to draw a line that connects the 2 hexagons that match the terrain types of the cards that were flipped. So for example, you might flip over a water card and a tree card, and you can draw a line from the center of a water hexagon to the center of an adjacent tree hexagon. You are doing this in order to try to connect camps that are basically lettered at the beginning of the game around the outside of the island. So you will have a camp that's labeled A through, I believe, E, and you will want to try to connect the A camp to the A camp by drawing these small segments until you've connected it all the way down to the end. You will also be trying to draw these connections so that you can connect the camps to certain items out on the board, like a stone tablet or a sea monster, or I think there's a raven and several different things. And as you collect these, you're going to be earning points. The earlier that you can collect them, the more points you'll earn because you will collect the points for them every single round. So if you collect something in round 1, you'll score for round 1, round 2, and round 3 on the large map. If you collect something in the second round, then you would have missed out on those points during the first round. Once you collect the last of a specific type of item out on the maps, so if you collect all of the stone tablets, then you will actually get a bonus free segment to draw on your map, which is often very helpful to connect things where the cards were just not coming up with the right combination. Like I said, you will be playing over either 2 or 3 rounds. At the end of each round, you will add up the points for any of the objects you've collected out on the map. And then at the end of the game, you will add in any points for connecting the camps A to A, B to B, C to C, and any bonuses that you would have gotten for doing it first as well. So it's a little bit of a race. It's a really fun game because you can't do it all. There's no way that you can connect everything and collect everything out on the board and score all of the points, but it's fun to try anyway. It includes a solo mode that is a simple beat your own score. You essentially just play the game as is, as if it was multiplayer, and then you see how high of a score you can get. So it is more or less a multiplayer solitaire game. So if you are looking for something with more interaction, this is not going to be the game for you. But it's one that I have really enjoyed. I love playing it solo. It's super fast to play. It comes in a small box. If I play it solo, I'll typically play it several times in a row. And we will take this out with us when we go out places and just to kill time at a restaurant or music lessons or wherever we go. It's one that you can just grab and take with you. So that is my number 53, Trails of Tucana. Coming in at number 52 is the final flip and write game on my list, and this is the original Welcome To. Welcome To was originally published in 2018 and was on my list in 2021. At that time, it came in at number 26, and so it's fallen 26 places, but again, that's actually not that big of a drop considering how many new games are on the list. Welcome To Your Perfect Home was designed by Benoit Turpin and has artwork from Anne Heitsiek, and this was also published by Blue Cockard Games, and for a while it was published by Deepwater Games as well, which is where I got my copy. Welcome To is a game that I wasn't originally all that interested in. It didn't look like something that I would enjoy or that would have much staying power. I originally found it on a full playthrough tutorial on Before You Play, and it was fun because on their tutorial, it was a play along because you can play from home. All you need are the cards and a score sheet or the digital app, and you can play along at home. So in Welcome To Your Perfect Home, you are going to be creating a neighborhood where you are numbering houses and planning out estates. On each turn, there are going to be 3 cards at the top in a display, and you will flip over each of the 3 cards, which will create 3 pairs. And just like in Welcome to the Moon that I talked about just a little bit earlier, you will select one of the 3 pairs in order to write onto your sheet that's in front of you. In Welcome To, you are going to be adding house numbers to each of the houses on 3 different streets. The house numbers have to go in ascending order, although they don't have to be sequential. So you can skip numbers in between, but you can't ever put numbers that are out of order. The numbers go from 1 to 15, and so you'll plan out your houses on these streets, which all have less than 15 houses on them. So it gives you a little bit of wiggle room there. There are several different special abilities that get matched up with the numbers, and for the most part, the special abilities can be used on a separate house or in a different location than where you drew your house numbers. There's a few exceptions to that rule. The main one being the pools. If you're going to build a pool, it has to be a house that's pre-printed on your board with a pool on it. You'd have to place the matching house number there and then circle the pool. You also have to build parks on the same house street or the same street as the house where you put the number, but otherwise a lot of them are pretty flexible. We have absolutely loved Welcome To, and it is by a wide margin my most played game of all time. I think at this point I'm past 150 plays of this one. It never gets old. We play it on Board Game Arena almost every weekend. My mom and I play this several times, usually back to back on Board Game Arena. We play my physical copy when she visits. We take it with us on vacation. Everywhere we go, we bring Welcome To. It is such a delightful game. It's so quick to play. Once you get the concept of it, that first game can be a little bit rough as you kind of put the pieces together. But once you do, it's such a fun puzzle. It's another one that's more or less multiplayer solitaire. The only interaction between the players is really who can achieve the 3 objectives first and gain the most points. And then you also have to pay attention to how the other players are playing to see if they may trigger the end game before you're ready for it. There are 3 triggers to the end game. Either someone has filled in all of the houses on all 3 of their streets. More likely is that someone has either completed all 3 of the objective cards or that someone has obtained 3 of the permit refusals, meaning that they were not able to use any of the combinations of cards that were available on that turn and so couldn't place a house number. Like I said, Welcome To is one of our favorite games. It's an absolute delight. I will likely never get tired of playing this game. I have all of the expansions as well, which just add fresh sheets and a little bit of variation to the rules. There's a winter Christmas one where you're stringing Christmas lights. There's an Easter one where you're hunting for Easter eggs, which is actually harder than you would think. That one was pretty challenging. And then there's several others that I don't think we've played yet, but we do have them and we'll likely explore them in the future. So that is my number 52, Welcome to. Okay, to finish out the bottom half of my list, coming in at number 51 is a game that was on my list in 2021. It is Herbaceous. Herbaceous is a 2017 game designed by Eduardo Baroff and Steve Finn. It is published by Pencil First Games and Dr. Finn's Games and has artwork from Beth Sobel. Herbaceous is the first game from Pencil First Games that I added to my collection. I purchased this one in 2020, and in my 2021 list, this came in at number 16 for my favorite games. So it's a drop of 35, but again, that's not that much considering. So in Herbaceous, you are going to be collecting different types of herbs and planting them into different types of planters in your garden. It's a little bit of a push your luck game combined with primarily set collection. It comes in a small box, and there's even a pocket edition that comes in an even smaller box and takes up an even smaller amount of table space. But essentially, it's just a bunch of cards. So what you're going to be doing on your turn is you will be adding herbs to one of your 4 pots if you want to. This action is optional on your turn. Second action on your turn is not optional, and that is to add herbs to the garden. And on your turn, you're going to add 2 herbs to the garden. 1 herb is going to go to your private garden that only you can use, and one of the herbs is going to go into the community garden in the center. It's your choice when you draw the first herb where you place it, either in your own garden or the community garden. The second one that you draw has to go in the other garden. Wherever you didn't place the first one, the second one has to go there. This will allow you to theoretically build up a garden, both in the community and your own personal garden, where you can pot the most amount of herbs as you can when you take that optional potting action at the beginning of a turn. You can only pot herbs into your 4 planters once. You can't ever come back and add herbs to it at a later time. So once you've put your herbs into that pot is finished for the rest of the game. You will play out in this way until all of the herb cards have been drawn and played out into the gardens and subsequently potted. You can pot herbs after all of the cards have been drawn. That's the only action you'll be able to take at that point. And then at the end, you will add up the points based on how well you've potted herbs into your own personal garden. You have 1 glass jar that is only for special herbs. And if you can get 1 of each of the special herbs in that pot, then you will actually get a special bonus 5 points from the herb biscuit, but you can still pot other plants in there. So each pot is worth more points the more herbs that you can get into them. And like I said, because you can't go back and add herbs to it, it's really important that you wait until you think you have as many as you possibly can. Each of the different pots will hold herbs in a different combination. So for example, one of them wants just 1 single type of herb. Another one is looking for 1 of all unique herbs, so 1 of each of them is ideal. And then the third one is actually looking for pairs of herbs. So you'll want like 2 basil and 2 tarragon and 2 saffron. And so you'd want to theoretically have 2 of each of the herbs in that pot. But as you're playing, everyone can pull from the community garden. So it's a little bit of push your luck in trying to decide when your opponent is going to pull the trigger, so to speak, and grab the herbs from the center garden and put them in their own pot, and you'll miss out on it. You will also earn points for any pot or herbs that are left over in your personal garden at the end. So it's ideal. It does incentivize people to take from the community garden first. It can be a little bit mean, even given how beautiful the cards are and how like serene the artwork is, because you are taking those herbs out from underneath people. but it plays super quickly, and so you can just reshuffle and start again, and it's no big deal. It's one that I have really enjoyed. It includes a solo mode out of the box where it's just to beat your own score, but you basically split the deck in half. You can play and then pick up the second half of the deck and play immediately again. And in that mode, cards are discarded. So you'll actually be drawing 3 cards each turn. You'll put one in the community garden, one in your private garden, and then you'll discard one. And the same rules apply that if I place the first 2 into the gardens, then I have to discard the third one no matter what it is. So it gives you that still sort of push your luck feeling that is in the multiplayer. I have played this both multiplayer and solo. It's great both ways. And it's one that if you haven't checked it out and you like this type of quick playing card game with beautiful artwork with a nature theme, it's one that I highly recommend. That is my number 51, Herbaceous. All right, so that does it for this list. Thank you so much for joining us again. And I hope that you liked some of the games on this list. Leave us a comment below on what were your favorites, or maybe what games just fall outside of your top 50 games of all time. Add it below. We'd love to see what you enjoy playing as well. Until next time, please consider subscribing to us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as well. And enjoy playing games with your family, your friends, and even solo. Bye.